Hello, everybody. Welcome. I don't know if I started right on time or not. I have this little, I use Ecamm, and I have this little countdown, and I didn't know if it would start on its own. And I don't think it did. So I eventually clicked go live, but hopefully I was pretty much on time. So, hey, Scott. Good to see you. Yes, so say hello in the comments so I know who is joining me. I think this will be a fun conversation. I got just a handful of things that I want to talk about around the holidays, especially with, at least for the US folks, Thanksgiving coming up this Thursday, and then obviously the crazy shopping weekend. I don't know if anybody partakes in that or not. Thanks, Scott. So it was on time. But so let me ask, because there's a countdown with Ecamm. I also created a countdown, but I didn't use that tonight. Once it counts down to 0, would Ecamm just automatically click on and go live, or do I always have to push the live button? I was just curious. If you know, you can drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just keep experimenting each week. So actually, I wanted to start out with a little bit of a story, and hoping that this story will illustrate some of the things that I always talk about, because I talk about frequency and trying to feel, what it would feel like to already have your desire, come to fruition. And over the summer sometime, I was flipping through stations on Pandora, and I flipped to accidentally, I flipped to a Christmas station. And instantly, when I say, as soon as I understood it was a Christmas song, instantly, like I was transported back, my mind, my body, my spirit, to Christmas. Even though it was the middle of July, I have the AC blowing, I just had this Christmas feeling come over me. It instantly brought me back. And I was thinking about that's what I'm talking about, right? When I say if you can feel what it would feel like to have what you're trying to, call in and achieve or whatnot, to have your desire already, like I said, come to fruition. That's what I'm talking about, that feeling. So if you can, whatever it is, having enough money in your bank account, being able to, write a check for a down deposit on a house, getting that new car, whatever, losing those 10 pounds, just, having a healthy body and not dealing with maybe some of the health concerns that you might have. Close your eyes and feel that. I guess that's just what I just felt like it really connected when, again, that song came on, and I was instantly brought back to the Christmas season. And obviously it wasn't the Christmas season. There was no family gatherings. There was no Christmas trees. But I certainly felt like it was Christmas. So I just thought it was a good illustration of what I'm talking about. So I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that or not. Hey, Sunny. Hi, Granny. Who else has joined? Hi, Daniel. No, you always have to click go live. Okay, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. I had asked at the beginning if Ecamm Live would automatically just click on if I didn't hit the go live button. Hi, CL. So Scott answered me. Okay, so I wanted to open with that story, and a couple of things that I wanted to talk about tonight was, with the holidays coming this week, or starting this week, if you would, trying to help de-stress as much as we can. And, I think one of the things, and I'm speaking from experience here, is the anticipation. And I know everybody can relate to this at one point or another in your life, that you've stressed out over an event coming up, or maybe a conversation you needed to have, or, maybe running into somebody, or just, preparing for, say, Thursday's dinner or whatnot, whatever that is, and you anticipate and you worry about it. You worry about it all week, maybe for weeks, whatever it may be. But then when the event happens, have you ever noticed that it's never as bad as you anticipated it to be? The worry in your head. And I think, it was Jesus who said, you don't have to borrow worries from tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Just stay in the present moment. And again, I think that's a secret, that if you can just live in the present moment and stay in the moment, obviously you got to think a little bit in the future so you can plan and whatnot, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about if, Uncle Bob's going to show up and, will Uncle Bob drink too much, or it may or may not happen. Just let it be. So, I was just, it's just that anticipation trap, right? But when you're in the moment and you're present, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. So I just think if we could stay more in the moment and live in the now and not worry, about things that could happen, whether it's Thursday or whether it's, even a month out and it's Christmas. Will I have enough money, for the holidays? I know that's a big one right now for a lot of people, as far as how the economy is. I know our politicians like to say how great the economy is, but and it doesn't matter which side you're on. So it's definitely not political, but it just isn't. A lot of people are struggling right now, and I just think there's a lot of worry around that. So if we could learn how not to, I guess, borrow worry and just live in the moment and try not to have anticipation hinder us in any way. So let me just, and again, I'm not saying not to plan and not, to be forward thinking to some degree, but when it comes to worrying, maybe just let that go. And I know we probably all have examples in our life that, whether, I know with my kids, sometimes they're worried about a final they have to take and they get stressed out over it for weeks. And then they're like, oh yeah, that wasn't too bad, especially if you prepare for it, right? So if you prepare the best you can for something, usually it's not going to be as bad as you think it's going to be. So just don't fall into that anticipation trap. Try and stay in the moment, because that's also when you can hear, what I call your soul. You can actually hear your soul. That's when they talk to you. They don't talk to you in the future, and you certainly cannot worry about the past. What has happened, and you just can't worry about it. You have to let go. That might be another topic for another day. But and then the other thing, and I may have touched on this before, is the comparison trap. I watched an amazing. It was a Netflix movie. It wasn't Hallmark, but it was, it was one of those great movies that everything is perfect and the ending is always beautiful and perfect, and every tree is decorated, just right, and everybody shows up and does what they're supposed to do. But we all know that's just make-believe, right? So it's good to enjoy the movies. It's good to, especially if it's funny and it can make you laugh. But you can never compare yourself, whether it's to a movie or to somebody else's, social media, or somebody else's, even just when you go to visit somebody and you think like, wow, they got it all together. Look at how, nicely decorated their house is, or wow, it seems like everybody here, there's no stress, there's no anxiety, everything's just perfect here. It never is, okay? I just think we need to be careful that we're not comparing ourselves to somebody else or to anybody else's situation We all have different shoes. We all walk a different walk. And I think that's when that's when some of the stress comes in, right? Well, we're not doing it just like they're doing it. Oh, wow, we don't have it all together. Nobody has it all together. So just be careful of the comparison trap as well. Yeah, it just says enjoy the movies. Don't measure your life against anybody else's. Yeah, so I touched on that. And at least in my life, God shows up in the mess. So certainly we're not perfect here in the Heseltine household. But just, I guess, a couple of things maybe after the live that I'd like you to try is, where I opened up with that story of hearing a Christmas song in the middle of July and it transported me back. Immediately, I felt like it was Christmas. Just whatever is on your vision board or whatever is on your goals, whatever it is, if you could just sit in silence 3-5 minutes, close your eyes and just dream about that and literally see it and visualize it the best you can, but then feel it. What would it feel like, literally we're trying to buy a house right now, so I'll use my example, just to be able to write a check right from my bank account, for that deposit. Just so whatever it is for you, whatever you're trying, to achieve in your life, just try and feel that. And again, that's the frequency. That's what will draw it. What will happen is you'll start making choices towards that, and the universe will just align things so that you can achieve that. So I just wanted you to try that again for that example and the way I opened it up. But then also just identify anything where you may find yourself anticipating anything in the coming, holiday season, whether it's Thursday for Thanksgiving or whether you celebrate Hanukkah or Christmas. Is there anything that you're anticipating that is causing you some anxiety? Try and let that go. And think of a time that you were anxious about something, nervous about something, and then after you got through the event or you got through whatever the circumstance was, you were like, yeah, that wasn't so bad. I know we've all been there. We've all done that. So the Little Debbie snacks, yes. You're right, Scott. Comparison steals joy, for sure. One of the things I learned a long time ago, and one of my mentors had told me this, the only person you should ever compare yourself to is yourself. And if you can just, if tomorrow's version of yourself can be better than yesterday's version of yourself, then you're on the right track. But you can't compare yourself to anybody else. So I talked about the anticipation. I talked about the comparison trap. So now I want to do something a little bit fun, or at least I think it's fun. And that's what I'm calling intentional gift giving. And I don't know why, but I have always been able to just come up with really great ideas for gifts. I don't know why. I just have. And people come to me all the time asking for suggestions for whoever in their life. And I can literally ask people a handful of questions about the person they're trying to buy for, and I can come up with a half a different suggestions for them. And they're usually a hit. It's just, it's just the way it is. It's a fact. So what I ended up doing is I created a prompt for AI, and with what I would normally ask, like if somebody came to me and said, okay, Lori, started dating this guy, or, my son just turned 16. I don't know what to get them. let me just back up. So with intentional gift giving, my suggestion this year, well, not just this year, but typically a rule I like to follow is, how will it make somebody feel? It's always about the feelings with me. How will that gift make someone feel? Because the last thing I think any of us need is stuff, right? None of us need stuff. And I guarantee by January, whatever you bought somebody, they will typically forget what you bought them if it doesn't make them feel something. And then 6 months after that, it just becomes part of their, decluttering journey, if you would, or their silent to-do list that they walk by and they have to do something with it. Whether they need to use it, whether they need to get rid of it, whatever it is. So again, I put this prompt together, and I will leave it in the description after this live is public. But let me just kind of walk you through some of the questions if you were to use AI. So instead of giving stuff, how you want to make them feel. And that was one of the things I've learned in this storytelling class that I've been taking is people will not remember what you said, but people will remember how you make them feel. So it's along the same idea, right, with gift giving. And so here's how the prompt will work. And again, whatever tool you use, whether it's chat, I know most people use chat. I like Claude, but whatever tool you use, and the AI tool will ask you several questions in the prompt. They're going to ask you, who's the person that you want to buy for, and what's your what's your relationship with them, and then simple questions like, what do they value in life? What are they interested in? What are their hobbies? Like if I think of Daniel, and obviously he's interested in hunting. And I think of Scott, and Scott's interested in being outdoors and exploring the outdoors. And, Granny loves her granddaughter, but Granny loves her family, and, she loves sharing her wisdom. And I barely know you guys, but I know these few things about you. In CL, I know you love to create from the heart. Sunny, I don't know you well enough yet to come up with any ideas, but I will. So, so where was I? Okay, so what do they value? And not what you think they value, but what do they really care about? Is it alone time? Are they an adventurous person? Creative? Do they like to connect with other people? Do they like to help others? Do they like to learn? So just whatever it is, you'd have to think about that, and you'll input this in. And have they mentioned something to you over the last year, 6 months or whatever? I actually keep notes, mostly mental notes, on when I hear, whether it's my kids or a friend or something, say something, I just, I keep a mental note of that for whether it's their birthday or Christmas. But even just if they make an offhanded comment, right, about, I wish I had time to read, or I wish I wasn't so stressed. Just recently, my daughter had said, I wish I had more of Grandma's recipes. So I'm working with my sister-in-law to pull together all my mother-in-law's, not all of them, but the ones that she would make all the time, and putting them into a book for all the grandkids, not just my daughter. But, and that was inspired because she had just recently said something a month or so ago about that. And then think about, again, with the person, do you have a memory with this person that you share, that's important to you? Maybe a trip you took, or a conversation you had, or maybe a hard season that you had to walk through, or an inside personal joke. I mean, these are all things to think about when you're crafting, a list, a gift list. And then obviously you have to put your budget, and you got to be realistic. What can you afford? without going into any type of debt or any type of stress in January. That is so important because to me, some of the best gifts do not cost anything. And I'll get into that, I guess, a little bit. And then second, ask about the feeling that you're trying to create with somebody. How do you want to make them feel? Do you want to make them feel loved? That, acknowledge that you see them, that you support them? Do you want to inspire them? What is the feeling you want them to feel when they receive this gift? And like I said, it's not about the money, because to me, some of the best gifts don't cost anything, especially if it can be an experience or just spending time with somebody. And some ideas that I had come up with that really don't cost a whole lot is, a framed photo of you and the gift recipient together with a handwritten note, maybe about a memory or something, to transport them back in time. Maybe make a playlist of songs. I've done that before for my kids, for whether they're running, working out, just in the car. Create a playlist of songs for somebody. The other thing that I've done is a couple of different things. Like for my husband and I's anniversary one year, this is going back a while, but for however, maybe it was our 10th or our 12th or whatever it was, I had 12 envelopes and I wrote a card for each month in that year. And then sometimes there'd be like a gift card for us to go to the movies, or a gift card for us just, to go to one of our favorite hole-in-the-wall breakfast places. It was never anything expensive. But what was neat about it that he loved was the fact that every month, on the beginning of every month, he got to open up one of these envelopes. And again, it was typically, I would write something about a memory we shared, or do you remember when 5 years ago we did this or whatever. And that was one of his favorite gifts. And yeah, it cost a little bit of money because obviously the gift cards, but that's not what he liked about it. And even for my kids, and I've done this at different times in their life, when my kids went off their freshman year, they went off to college, I wrote them a stack of letters with instructions like open when you're missing home, open when you really need to talk to mom, but mom's not around, open when you're stressed about taking an exam. And again, that costs nothing at all. And I also did that for my son when he got married. Just, there's going to be hard times in your marriage. And I wrote him letters for when those times come that he maybe doesn't want to, talk to somebody, but he needs inspiration, he needs support. So you can do something like that too. You can write a letter from the heart. And another one is a remember when jar. You can put slips of paper in a jar. And again, maybe when they're having a bad day or they're having a good day, whatever, they can pull out one of those slips of paper and it's a memory between you and them. And then I had talked about the recipes with her grandmother's handwriting. We're putting them in a book. So it's not about the money, right? It's about the feeling and just letting them know that they matter to you. So again, I'll put the prompt in the description, and just this week, try it, right? Pick one person and try it. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll inspire you. Maybe it'll be way off base. I don't know. It is AI after all. They do make mistakes, but just see what comes up, right? And AI will at least help you, I guess, shorten the time it may take to do this. What else? There was one other thing. Where is it? Oh, yeah. So the other part of the prompt was that, so after you do come up with ideas for your gift recipient, actually, when you tell Chat, okay, for my brother, I want to get him, suggestion 4 or whatever, it will actually tell you where you can buy it, whether it's online or whether it's at a local store. You would obviously have to put in your location, zip code, or whatever. And it'll give you a rough price of what it could be. Obviously, prices, especially this time of year, fluctuate. So again, no guarantees, don't hold me to it, but it'll at least give you an idea of maybe you can get that on Amazon a little bit cheaper, or maybe the best is over at Barnes & Noble because they're having a sale. I don't know. But you can take it one step further and they'll actually tell you where you can get, if you're buying something, where you can get it. So, but yeah, the pricing could, obviously, especially with this weekend coming up and Cyber Monday and whatnot. I think that was it. I just wanted to talk about those four things. So now let me ask, and I know you guys have been chit-chatting, and there's a lot of talk here, so I don't even know if I'll be able to read through everything quickly, but what I do want to know, and I wanted to ask, does somebody have a favorite Christmas memory of all times? I love to give and experience a trip, a concert, a meal. Oh, what a great idea, Granny. I've never used any of the AI thing. Well, that's not a bad thing, Granny, that you've never used AI. I have very mixed feelings about AI. I use it because it's not going anywhere. But I have really mixed feelings. This is just not the forum to talk about them. So you think? Suggestions on how to deal with family members. Well, my feeling is you avoid them. Nothing says you have to talk with them. Sorry, I missed so many of these comments. These are great. Yeah, Granny, you're very. I've learned you are very authentic. You say what you think, and which is great. So it's great to hear that you're not keeping up with anyone. You just do the best you can. Exactly. No, nobody does have a perfect life, but you think, at least when I was growing up and as a young adult, I thought a lot of people had it together. But even when you think, like even people that I thought had it together, I have since realized they didn't have it together. And to me, as a kid, I feel like one of the biggest things were, we were very, very poor. But I've talked with people just even recently, and this woman that I was talking with, I talked about how we were so poor, I would never want anybody to come to our house growing up. Simple as that. She said, Lori, we had so much money that I never wanted anybody to come to my house because I did not grow up in a rich town. And I was just flabbergasted by that. I'm like, wow, I guess it just goes both sides of it. So it was just, it was a little bit of an eye-opening conversation for me when she told me that. Yeah, see, avoid them. That's what I would do, is I would just avoid. So I'm pretty good at coming up with a witty comment if somebody comes over and says something to me that's just not appropriate or condescending, but I try to avoid them altogether. Coupon books. Yeah. Yep, I've done things like that for the, especially when the kids were growing up. So I'd make a coupon book to babysit my granddaughter, but they don't need a coupon. They can just drop her off anytime. They just don't drop her off as much as I'd like them to. No specific memory, Scott, just an overall vibe. I mean, does everybody like the holidays? I mean, I like the holidays very, very much, but I didn't always. I used to dread them. I mean, I'm going back decades, but I know some people, and it's a different time sometimes for folks, whether they're going through a transition in their life, and not just a bad transition, sometimes a good transition. Maybe, somebody just gets married or whatever, and now they're trying to manage two families around the holidays, right? And sometimes that can cause tension. Even I've always been pretty laid back about my kids. Well, my son's the only one who's married, and he'll typically spend Thanksgiving with his wife's family. And I don't have a problem with that. But this year he's feeling really, really bad because this year, obviously, they have my granddaughter, and so they want to do both. And I just think that's so stressful. I'm like, no. And my daughter-in-law's parents just expect them to be there. So I'm like, you don't need that stress. So we're actually going to do our own, on Wednesday night, we're going to get together. We won't do turkey. That'd be way too much turkey, but we'll do something else, and we'll just celebrate Wednesday night so that there's no stress, on Thursday. They don't have to go to two different houses because they're like, well, we can do dessert with you. And I'm like, no, so sometimes it's just a transition, and sometimes it causes chaos or some stress. And I'm just the type of person that I just don't want anybody to be stressed. If I can prevent it in any way, I would rather be the one dealing with the feelings or the stress than having somebody else in my family deal with it. So this is a little off topic, but I'll say it anyways. Scott, I absolutely loved your video this week. Your behind the scenes too was pretty good, but I really, really, really liked and if you've done one since then, I haven't seen it yet. So whatever one you did where you talked about, I guess just the story that, was it the turtle or something, looking for something? I just thought it was very entertaining. There was actually a couple times that I chuckled, and you really made me laugh on the behind the scenes one. So I really appreciated that, because I'm like, wow, I'm not the only one who repeats it 17 times when I'm trying to do my scripts. So I'm like, wow, we all do that. That's pretty cool. I don't feel so alone anymore. But no, you really did. And I don't know if you know, I hyped the video. So I don't know if YouTube does anything when you get a video hyped, but I did hype your video because I thought it was that good. It was just really different, it just, you took it up another level. So no pressure though for the next one, but that one was really good. So. Yes, we are all going to make it. I am going to step away for 15 seconds because I'm going to go get my book so I can do our reading. You can stare at my fire for a minute. Actually, you can probably still hear me because I have my mic on. And today is the 23rd. Okay. I don't know who's still with me, but I'm going to read from Thoughtuary again. November 23rd. This is kind of a good one. Let your worries out before bed. Weight on your heart. Some days you wake up to a weight on your heart. It's as if your troubles were crouched up on your bedside, just waiting to pounce before peace could place you gently in the day. So you lie there, feeling like you have never had a chance at a good day, and it frustrates you all the same. But what to do? You process worry before you go to bed, just like I'm doing now. It's not only cathartic, but it's also preventative, and will give you a much better shot at a good night's sleep and a peaceful morning. So let your worries out before bed. Leave them on God's doorstep, write them down, or share them with a friend. Give them somewhere else to go, and maybe in the morning, they won't be crouched on your bedside table, just waiting to pounce. Ask yourself this: in what way can I release worries before bed? And will I make this practice a regular part of my daily life? That was good. It's good advice. Don't go to bed with worries on your heart. I don't necessarily write down my worries before bed, but I always write down my thoughts as far as my to-do list or just something that's weighing on, my mind, because that way then I don't have to worry about it or wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and start thinking about it again. I know it's on a piece of paper and it's waiting for me in the morning. So I do that often. Yeah, the fire's nice. It's nice and warm sitting here. It's getting a little chilly up here in the north. It actually was snowing today. No accumulation, just flurries. But kind of fun. Fun nonetheless. We say worrying is illegal. You say that, Scott? Yeah. Actually, I had a conversation with a girlfriend of mine the other day, and she's just going through some stuff, and she's definitely worrying about things that I feel she doesn't need to be worrying about yet. And I said to her, like, what good is it doing you to worry about it? If it comes to pass, it comes to pass, and you deal with it. But worrying isn't going to make it come to pass any less if it's going to. So, and I know it's easier said than done when you're not in somebody's shoes, but sometimes, you do. You just have to set it at God's doorstep and let it go, and give it to Him. So, okay. I guess I can let you find people go and maybe find one of those Hallmark movies or not. That's probably what I'll do. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Thank you, CL. Yeah, I love the fire. I really do. Oh, good. I'm glad the DJI mic. I remembered this time. Last week I forgot. That's why there was all that clanking on my computer, because I had put my notes on my computer not realizing that I was using the laptop mic. So I tried to do better. But I forgot to do my countdown this time. I'm still struggling with some of the eCam stuff, but I'll figure it out. I'll get there. Thanks, everyone. You guys have a great night, okay? And though I will see you, I'm sure, during the week somewhere. Have a great Thanksgiving if I don't, though, okay? Scott, if you're still on, are you going to do your live Wednesday night? And Daniel, are you still doing your lives on Wednesday? Grumpy Cat's Worst Christmas. Is that really a movie? If it's really a movie, CL, I'll go look for it. So Scott may have already dropped. Maybe I'll see everybody on Wednesday then at Daniel's, and I don't think Granny joined back, but I know hers is typically Tuesday night. Ah, yes, Rob. Forgot about Rob. But yes, I'm always at Rob's, usually. All right, folks, you guys have a great night. Talk to you soon.